Have you ever wondered why you say yes to things even when you didn't plan to? Why you suddenly feel convinced, persuaded, or nudged in a direction that feels natural even though someone else engineered that feeling? This isn't magic, it's psychology. And once you understand how it works, you'll start seeing influence everywhere. In every conversation, ad social media post, negotiation, and even in the smallest day-to-day decisions you make without thinking. Today, let's uncover the invisible forces that quietly shape human behavior. Because persuasion isn't just a strategy, it's a science wrapped in patterns that run deep inside our brains. Humans are wired to make quick decisions. We don't analyze every choice. We rely on shortcuts, mental autopilot systems that help us move through the world quickly. But these shortcuts can be triggered by others. Someone who understands these triggers can guide your decisions without needing pressure or even a long conversation. You simply respond because your brain thinks it's the easiest path. Think about this. You hold a door for someone and they instantly smile and thank you. They didn't think deeply about their response. It came automatically. Or when someone laughs in a group, everyone else smiles too, even if they didn't hear the joke. Humans mirror emotions and actions without realizing it. Persuasion begins right there in these fast, automatic responses. But influence becomes powerful when someone uses your natural instincts to direct your choices. Not by force, but by understanding what your brain already wants: safety, connection, approval, belonging, clarity, and identity. Every persuasive moment taps into one of these needs. When you buy something because everyone else has it, that's your need to belong. When you trust someone because they look confident or knowledgeable, that's your need for clarity and guidance. When you stick to a decision because you said it earlier, that's your need for consistency. Influence works because it uses what is already inside you. Ordinary interactions become persuasion tools without you noticing. A friendly tone, a small favor, a confident posture, a scarcity warning, a genuine compliment, or a social proof number on a product page, all of these can shape your decisions in seconds. And they don't feel forced, they feel natural. That's why persuasion is so powerful. It blends into human behavior so smoothly that most people don't realize it's happening. The truth is, persuasion isn't good or bad by itself. It's a tool. The intent behind it decides everything. Someone might use your psychological patterns to help you, like motivating you to form better habits or make positive changes. Someone else might use it to exploit you, push you into choices you wouldn't normally make, or influence you emotionally when you're vulnerable. Understanding persuasion gives you power to use it wisely and power to protect yourself from it. Before we explore the specific principles of influence, understand this. Persuasion works because it speaks directly to the human brain. It acts on your instincts, your emotions, your desire for belonging, and your tendency to choose the easiest path. Once you see these invisible patterns, you can't unsee them, and that's where real control begins. Reciprocity is one of the most powerful forces guiding human behavior, and the surprising part is that it works even when we're fully aware of it. The simple idea is this: when someone gives us something, attention, help, kindness, a gift, even a small gesture, we feel an almost automatic urge to give something back. It's not a choice we think deeply about. It's an emotional pull that comes from centuries of human evolution. Communities survived because people exchanged favors. So now our brains are wired to maintain that balance. You've experienced it in everyday moments. Someone offers you a piece of gum. Suddenly you feel like offering them something too. A friend helps you move your furniture, and later you feel obligated to help when they ask for a favor. Even in arguments, if one person softens their tone, the other unconsciously softens too. Reciprocity isn't just a rule, it's a social pressure that keeps relationships stable. And that pressure can be used to influence decisions in ways most people don't notice. Businesses understand this better than anyone. That's why stores hand out free samples. The sample isn't just about letting you taste something, it's about triggering a sense of duty. Once you've received something, even something tiny, your brain starts whispering, maybe I should buy this. And even if you don't buy it right away, you feel a warmer connection to the brand. Online creators use this too. They give free tips, free PDFs, free tools, free advice. And what happens next? You feel more open to buying their course, liking their content, or subscribing to their channel. Not because you're forced to, but because your mind tries to balance the scales. Even small acts of kindness can persuade. Think about a salesperson who compliments you genuinely before showing a product, or someone who remembers your name, offers you water, or gives you a little extra attention before making a request. These gestures are small, but meaningful. Once someone invests in you emotionally or socially, you naturally lean toward doing something for them. That's reciprocity at work, quiet, subtle, but incredibly powerful. But there's another side. Reciprocity can also trap you. Some people offer favors not out of kindness, but out of strategy. They understand that once they give something, they gain leverage. A small gift can make you feel guilty for saying no later. A little help can make you accept a bigger request. And the most effective influencers don't ask immediately. They wait. They let the sense of obligation build until the right moment. The smartest thing you can do is recognize when reciprocity is being used intentionally. If someone gives with genuine heart, return it naturally. But if someone gives to manipulate, step back and evaluate. You're not obligated to pay back a kindness designed purely to control you. Understanding this principle doesn't stop you from being generous. It simply makes you more aware. Reciprocity influences almost every human interaction, from friendships to business deals. And once you become aware of how this principle works around you, every free gift and every small favor will start to look different. You'll see the invisible strings, the subtle exchanges, and the psychology behind why people say yes more often than they mean to. Consistency is one of the strongest psychological forces shaping human behavior. Once people take a stand, make a choice, or express an opinion, publicly or privately, they feel a deep inner pressure to behave in ways that match that decision. This happens because humans like to appear stable, reliable, and predictable, both to others and to themselves. Changing your stance often feels uncomfortable, like it challenges your identity. So even when the original choice was small, we tend to stick with it just to stay consistent. This is why small commitments work like magic. If someone can get you to say yes to something tiny, the chances of you agreeing to something bigger later increase dramatically. Think about signing a harmless petition. At first, it's just a signature, but later, you might feel inclined to donate or volunteer because you already signaled support. Your brain says, "I'm the kind of person who supports this, so I should continue." Marketers use this brilliantly. When they ask you to create a free account, join a newsletter, or try a trial version, they're not just giving you access, they're planting the first seed of commitment. Public commitments strengthen this even further. When you tell friends about your goals, your choices, or your beliefs, a new layer of pressure forms. You don't want to look uncertain or untrustworthy, so you push yourself harder, not because someone forces you, but because consistency becomes tied to your self-image. Even social media taps into this. Once you publicly like something, support a cause, or follow a creator, your future behavior often aligns with that identity. But commitment also has a subtle emotional effect. Every time you choose something, you reinforce a small part of who you believe you are. So if you agree to help someone once, you start thinking of yourself as someone who supports them. If you buy a brand once, you build brand loyalty. If you defend an opinion once, it becomes part of your worldview. This is why people defend old decisions even when they're no longer right for them. Changing direction can feel like admitting a mistake, and the fear of appearing inconsistent makes people stick to choices longer than they should. Of course, this principle can be used ethically or manipulatively. Good leaders encourage small commitments to help people grow, like starting with tiny habits that evolve into positive routines. But manipulators use the same technique to lock people into bigger demands. They begin with small, harmless requests and slowly escalate them. By the time the final demand comes, the person feels like they've already invested too much to turn back. The key is awareness. Before committing to anything, ask yourself if you truly want to. Recognize when someone is pushing small decisions to guide you toward larger ones, and understand that consistency should serve you, not trap you. When used wisely, this principle can shape your life in powerful ways, helping you build discipline, habits, confidence, and trust. But once you understand how commitment operates, you'll never again overlook the tiny yes that quietly directs your future choices. Social proof is the reason we feel safer, doing what others are already doing. When humans are uncertain, we look around and copy the behavior of the group. This instinct comes from survival. Following the crowd meant less danger. Even today, our brains still assume that if many people approve of something, it must be the right choice. And this simple instinct influences our decisions more than we realize. Think about the last time you checked reviews before buying something. You trusted strangers' opinions more than the product itself, or when you saw a restaurant crowded and assumed the food must be great, or when a video with millions of views felt more worth watching than one with a few hundred. None of these decisions were carefully analyzed. They were guided by the feeling that, if so many people chose it, it must be good. Social media amplifies this instinct massively. Likes, shares, comments, follow accounts, they all act as signals of popularity. Even if we don't admit it, we're drawn toward what seems widely accepted. Influencers thrive because social proof gives them authority without them having to prove anything personally. Brands know this too. They highlight testimonials, success stories, and big numbers because they tap into your need for validation through crowds. But social proof isn't just about numbers. It affects everyday situations. When you enter a silent room, you automatically lower your voice. When everyone laughs, you smile even if you didn't hear the joke. When a crowd runs in one direction, you run too, even before knowing why. Our instinct tells us that the group must know something we don't. So we follow. However, this principle can lead to blind imitation. Sometimes the group is wrong. Trends can mislead. Crowds can panic. Fake popularity can be manufactured. Just because something is widely accepted doesn't make it right. Many people regret decisions they made just because everyone was doing it. Recognizing the pull of social proof helps you pause and think, am I choosing this for myself or because others chose it first? Used ethically, social proof can help guide people toward good choices, like joining a positive community or following healthy habits. But used manipulatively, it can trap people into decisions they never intended to make. Once you recognize how often you rely on others to make decisions, you gain the power to decide when to follow the crowd and when to trust your own judgment. Authority has a deep impact on human behavior because we are trained from childhood to obey figures who appear knowledgeable, experienced, or powerful. When someone looks like an expert, talks like an expert, or carries symbols of expertise, like uniforms, titles, credentials, or even confidence, we feel more inclined to trust their guidance without question. It's a shortcut our minds use to avoid confusion. If an authority says it, it must be correct. Consider how easily people follow instructions from doctors, teachers, police officers, or leaders. Even when unsure, they rarely argue. This instinct is so strong that in famous experiments, people obeyed commands that went against their moral beliefs simply because the instructions came from someone in a lab coat. Authority bypasses critical thinking because it feels safer to trust a leader than to analyze everything ourselves. Businesses and marketers take full advantage of this. They use expert-approved, clinically tested, or recommended by professionals labels to influence decisions. Even small details, like someone speaking confidently or using technical language, can create the illusion of authority. Influencers do this too. They position themselves as specialists, mentors, or advisors, even when their expertise is minimal, because people naturally follow those who appear to know more. But authority isn't just about titles. It's also about presence. Someone who speaks with certainty, holds eye contact, stands tall, or carries themselves with assurance automatically commands attention. People associate confidence with competence, even though the two are not always connected. This is why charismatic leaders can influence crowds even without real knowledge. The problem arises when authority is used to manipulate rather than guide. Fake experts, misleading endorsements, and staged credibility tricks people into trusting someone who does not deserve that trust. And because the authority effect is so automatic, most people don't realize they're being influenced. The best way to protect yourself is to question the source, not just the claim. Real authority encourages clarity, explanation, and transparency. False authority relies on pressure, complexity, and intimidation. Understanding this difference helps you avoid being controlled by titles, appearances, or confident voices. Authority, when genuine, can guide people toward better decisions. But once you recognize how easily it can be faked, you'll start seeing influence in places you never expected. Liking plays a surprisingly powerful role in persuasion because people naturally say yes to those they like. This doesn't always mean close friendship. Sometimes a simple smile, shared interest, or a relatable personality is enough to create warmth. When someone seems friendly, similar to us, or genuinely interested in our well-being, our defenses drop. And once our defenses drop, influence becomes easy. Physical attractiveness has an enormous impact too. Attractive people are often assumed to be smarter, kinder, and more trustworthy than they actually are. This halo effect makes their requests more persuasive without them needing to try. But attractiveness isn't the only factor. Similarity is just as effective. We trust people who remind us of ourselves, same background, interests, opinions, or communication style. It creates a feeling of connection, even if the relationship is brand new. Another key element is familiarity. The more we see someone, the more we like them. This is why creators who post consistently gain loyal audiences. Repetition builds comfort, and comfort builds trust. Compliments also work wonders. When someone appreciates us sincerely, we become more open to their ideas. Even small signs of positivity can transform a conversation. However, liking can be used strategically. Salespeople are trained to mirror body language, match tone, and find common ground intentionally. They know that once a customer feels understood, persuasion becomes smoother. Influencers design their personalities to appear relatable and approachable so that followers feel personally connected to them. But liking can be deceptive. Some people act friendly only to gain something: attention, money, agreement, loyalty. When someone becomes overly enthusiastic, overly similar, or overly complimentary too quickly, it may be a strategy rather than genuine connection. The key is to separate charm from intent. Real liking grows gradually and feels balanced. Manipulative liking feels rushed and one-sided. Once you train yourself to recognize the difference, you'll start seeing how often liking is used as a tool to guide your decisions. Understanding this principle helps both ways. It teaches you how to connect with people authentically, and it protects you from being influenced by charm that isn't real. Once you notice how liking shapes your choices, you'll understand why some people can win trust effortlessly while others struggle. Scarcity creates desire by making something feel limited, rare, or exclusive. Humans instinctively want things that seem hard to get. When availability decreases, value increases, not because the object changes, but because our perception changes. Scarcity triggers fear of missing out, and that fear pushes people into quick decisions they wouldn't make if the item were easily available. Think about moments when you rushed to grab the last piece of something, even if you didn't need it urgently, or when limited-time sales made you buy things you never planned to. Online shopping platforms use countdown timers, low stock warnings, and phrases like "only 2 left" because they know scarcity creates pressure. That pressure makes the mind focus on loss rather than logic. But scarcity isn't just about products. Opportunities, relationships, and experiences all feel more valuable when we believe they won't come again. A job opening that appears rare feels more desirable. A person who seems unavailable feels more attractive. A trend that is fading suddenly becomes urgent to join. Scarcity shifts our attention from "do I truly want this?" to "will I regret losing it?" Marketers take full advantage of this instinct. Limited editions, exclusive memberships, early bird offers, and flash sales are designed to speed up decision-making. The goal is simple: make you act before you think. Scarcity works so well because it triggers urgency and bypasses slow, rational thinking. But scarcity can mislead. Many limited offers aren't truly limited. Many rare opportunities are intentionally made to look rare. The illusion of scarcity is enough to activate emotional decision-making. Recognizing this helps you pause and question whether the urgency is real or manufactured. Used ethically, scarcity can motivate people to take action, avoid procrastination, and appreciate genuine opportunities. Used manipulatively, it can pressure people into choices they later regret. Once you become aware of how scarcity shapes your decisions, you'll start noticing how often urgency is used to control your reactions. Understanding this principle not only strengthens your awareness, but also gives you control. When you stop reacting to artificial scarcity, you make decisions based on value, not fear. Unity is one of the most emotionally powerful principles of influence because it taps into a deep human craving, the desire to belong. People are naturally drawn to groups, identities, and communities where they feel understood, accepted, and valued. When someone makes us feel like we're part of the same tribe, persuasion becomes effortless. Decisions feel less like choices and more like loyalty. And loyalty is one of the strongest motivators humans possess. Unity isn't just about having things in common. It's about feeling connected at a deeper level, where the line between me and us starts to blur. Think about how effortlessly you trust someone who shares your hometown, your language, your struggles, or your life story. Even small similarities, liking the same music, supporting the same team, growing up in the same environment, create an instant bond that makes influence stronger than logic. You don't just agree with the person, you feel aligned with them. This principle shows up everywhere in daily life. Families often support each other's decisions not because they fully understand them, but because they feel united by blood. Friends follow each other's choices because they feel part of the same journey. Communities rally around shared goals, traditions, or challenges because unity gives a sense of identity. Politicians tap into unity by framing their supporters as people like us. Brands build communities because once consumers feel they belong, their loyalty becomes unshakable. Even influencers online create a sense of unity by consistently addressing their audience as a family, tribe, or community. They share personal stories, struggles, and behind-the-scenes moments, not just to entertain, but to make people feel connected. Once viewers feel that bond, persuasion becomes subtle and almost invisible. They like, follow, support, and buy, not because they're pressured, but because they feel part of something bigger. But unity can also be used manipulatively. Some people highlight similarities just to gain trust. They emphasize shared identity to build emotional closeness quickly. They create us versus them scenarios to strengthen loyalty. When unity is used ethically, it builds connection, empathy, and teamwork. When used unethically, it can create blind loyalty and prevent people from questioning harmful decisions. Awareness is key. Before trusting someone simply because they seem similar or claim to understand your background, pause and notice whether the unity feels genuine or artificially accelerated. Real unity grows slowly, based on shared values and consistent behavior. Fake unity feels forced, rushed, or overly emotional. When you learn to distinguish the two, you protect yourself from being influenced by identity-based manipulation. Understanding this principle empowers you both ways. You can use unity to build genuine connections, inspire people, and bring communities together. And by recognizing when unity is used as a tool, you can maintain clarity and independence. Once you see how powerfully unity shapes choices, you'll understand why people often follow those who make them feel like they belong. The contrast principle shapes our decisions by changing the way we judge value, expense, quality, or importance, not based on what something truly is, but based on what it's compared to. Humans rarely evaluate things in isolation. We understand the world through comparisons. Something feels cheap only when something more expensive is placed beside it. Something feels impressive only when something weaker comes before it. And this simple shift in perception can dramatically influence our choices without us realizing it. Imagine entering a store and seeing a shirt priced at a very high amount. At first it feels unreasonable, but then the salesperson shows you another shirt that's even more expensive. Suddenly the original one seems like a better deal. Nothing changed about the shirt, only your perception did. This is the power of contrast. It rewires your sense of value instantly. You believe you're choosing rationally, but you're responding emotionally to a comparison that was carefully set up for you. Marketers use this principle constantly. A high-priced premium option is placed next to a mid-range product so that the mid-range one appears more affordable. Real estate agents show buyers a terrible house first, so the next house looks much better. Car dealerships present the most luxurious model before the standard one, so customers feel relieved choosing the cheaper option. The strategy is simple. Make the target choice look more appealing by shaping what comes before or after it. But contrast affects more than money. It impacts relationships, opportunities, emotions, and even self-esteem. If you meet a very rude person first, someone who is simply neutral afterward will seem kind. If you watch a difficult task first, an easier one will feel effortless. If you've had a long, stressful week, even a small break feels like a luxury. Our minds constantly compare experiences, and those comparisons shape how we feel about everything. Influencers also rely on contrast to build engagement. They show dramatic before and after transformations, making the after seem even more extraordinary. Politicians compare their ideas to extreme alternatives so their proposals seem reasonable. Even storytellers use contrast. Moments of tension make relief feel stronger. Sadness makes happiness more powerful, and silence makes sound more dramatic. However, contrast can mislead when used manipulatively. If someone wants you to accept a big request, they might ask for an impossible favor first. When you refuse, they follow with a smaller request that suddenly feels manageable, even if you wouldn't have agreed if it were offered alone. This is the door-in-the-face technique, and it works because the mind judges each request relative to the previous one. To protect yourself, you must learn to isolate decisions. Instead of asking, "Is this better than what came before?" ask, "Is this right for me on its own?" When you separate the comparison from the actual value, you regain control of your thinking. Understanding the contrast principle makes you aware of how easily your perception can be shaped. It reveals that decisions you thought were logical were often emotional reactions to carefully crafted comparisons. And once you see how contrast influences everything, from choices to emotions, you begin to navigate the world with clearer eyes. The final force of persuasion worth understanding is the emotional trigger, the invisible engine behind almost every decision humans make. We like to believe we act based on logic, facts, and careful thinking, but in reality, emotion drives action far more powerfully than reason ever can. When something makes us feel inspired, afraid, excited, hopeful, angry, or deeply connected, our choices shift instantly. Emotion grabs attention, anchors memories, and pushes people to act before their rational mind even catches up. Think about the last time you bought something because it felt right, or when a story moved you so deeply that you wanted to support a cause, follow a creator, or change a habit. That decision wasn't made by your logical brain, it was sparked by emotion. That's why great storytellers, leaders, creators, and marketers don't focus on facts first. They focus on feelings. Because once the heart is engaged, the mind follows naturally. Every persuasive message uses emotion in subtle ways. Fear creates urgency. Hope creates motivation. Curiosity creates attention. Empathy creates connection. Even humor builds a sense of comfort and trust. When a speaker shares a personal story before making a request, they're not wasting time. They're building an emotional bridge. That emotional bridge makes their message land with more weight. People don't remember data. They remember how something made them feel. Companies understand this deeply. Advertisements rarely talk about features. They talk about emotions. A perfume ad doesn't describe the ingredients. It shows confidence, glamour, or desire. A travel ad doesn't focus on prices. It paints a feeling of freedom and adventure. Political speeches don't revolve around detailed plans. They revolve around hope, fear, or unity. Emotional influence isn't random. It's strategic. But emotion isn't just used by professionals. It affects everyday life as well. When someone makes you feel respected, you trust them more. When someone makes you feel guilty, you become more cooperative. When someone makes you feel appreciated, you want to help them. Emotion forms the invisible thread connecting people and guiding behavior without conscious effort. A single emotional moment can influence decisions that logic could never touch. The danger is when emotions are intentionally provoked to manipulate. Some people create drama, urgency, or sympathy just to gain advantage. Others exaggerate problems to push you toward quick decisions. When emotion is used as a tool instead of a genuine connection, it becomes easy to lose awareness and fall into traps. Recognizing emotional manipulation helps you step back, breathe, and ask whether the choice aligns with your real values. The key is not to suppress emotion, but to understand it. When you recognize how feelings guide your decisions, you gain the ability to respond instead of react. Emotion is powerful, but awareness puts you back in control. And once you see how emotion shapes persuasion, you become stronger, more mindful, and harder to mislead. If you found value in this video, then like, share, and subscribe to my channel, Audiobook Library, for more powerful insights just like this.